Well, it took 2 years, almost 2.5 for the first big client. But even then, it was a ton of face-to-faces, and we were meeting. Actually, we're part of the Plug and Play Accelerator. So if any of you can ever be involved in accelerators from the tech side, I would recommend it. We had great success with them. Yeah, Plug and Play up at the Silicon Valley. Yeah, Sunnyvale. So we were part of that, and we still get a lot of meetings and whatnot through it. But it really is. It's not just the face-to-face meetings. Again, it's the follow-up. So if you have something like Duck Soup, whether that's not for lead gen and or even just follow-ups after meetings as part of your CRM solution, it's again, you probably do it way faster than we did.
Brilliant. No, you guys took my follow-up questions, especially on the tips. That was like almost the finale. But we can talk about the drama. So what was the cause of change of the CEO?
For the COO or the CEO?
CEO.
Oh, the CEO, just because Louis has always been, he's someone that's fascinating in terms of he knows what he knows, but he doesn't know what he doesn't know. So for him, he just doesn't have an insurance background. So he's like, well, why would I be the face of this if I can find someone who's very smart, who's sold multiple companies in insurance and has 25 years experience? That was kind of a no-brainer.
Okay. That's it.
But it was great. We did one press release. I will tell you this. PR Newswire is amazing. And if you sign up for their press releases, especially in the insurance space, I specifically timed out our release to go live right before InsurTech Connect. So I was like, I knew people would be kind of like jonesing for things that were new, whatever. I was standing there, maybe 15 minutes at most. Not one, not two, but 3 people came up to congratulate me on our CEO change. And then at the party, they happened to see DropIn on the badge. They're like, congrats on your CEO change. I'm like, that was the best $900 that I think we've ever spent as a company, because it works. But those little things like that, and I think, even though it's technically not considered a sexy space, being super creative with it is kind of where it's at. And whether that's Duck Soup, whether that's press releases, whether that's just, whatever opportunities you have based upon networking at some of these events, you'll figure it out as you go. And hopefully, again, it'll be faster than we did.
Yeah, because one of the things that we connected on was the Couple-J report about it.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah, which was a little bit off.
It was definitely interesting, her tone, but then it was so funny.
This is Sheffy, don't forget. That's part of the insurance entertainment part of it.
Yeah, but it was super interesting. He sent this, newsletter that went out about the company. And again, I kind of know when we're planning certain things and when we're not. But it was so funny. My interpretation of it was that she had a tone, and I don't know if that was my mama bear instinct coming out, being like, what are you saying about our company? But then everybody else, they just laughed. They're like, this is great. No new, good. All press is good press, and all of the above. So.
Makes sense. Yep. No. So how do you handle stuff like that? Because well, for now, you're still a relatively small company, and branding, strategy, marketing, PR is part of it.
Oh, totally. It's a huge part of it.
How do you do brand management, or are you there yet?
Same thing that I did with Talk Nerdy to Me Lover. You kind of buckle up, you hold on, and then when you get actual coverage, especially to that level, you just scream. I mean, I wish you could say that there's a strategy to it, but I feel like some of the smartest people are the ones that are staring at what the exact next step is and then the bigger picture. So I can't say, each time when something hits, this is how I'm going to respond, whatever in between. But it's just kind of knowing what you want your overall message to be. And I actually reached out to her when she wrote that. I was like, hey, can I give you, any company news? I was like, I'm the press person here. What can I do to help you? All of the above. That's always what I'm about. But I don't think, again, any of us really know what we're doing. I think it's just, again, you just hold on tight. You hope that what you're doing is right. And even if you make a mistake, congratulations, you're human. Hopefully it wasn't a big one, but.
Well, any other question? Because we just buzzed through this. It's amazing. I'm out of question besides the personal questions. So
how big is the company at this point?
We're at technically outside of the reseller agreement that we signed, because we have the company in the UK too. We're at about 12.
12 people, and
yeah,
how many
12 people in house.
How do you call them?
Oh, the drop raters. So 1,300 for the drone coverage, which is what we're focused on now. We thought people would have wanted it more for the smartphones, but actually this is another little marketing growth hack. The Craigslist, the free Craigslist options that they have to post gigs. So don't pay for the actual listings. So we had a full sales team when we first started. We had about 8 people in there, just literally picking up the phone and cold calling all these courier companies. That was the approach initially. I was in, management of all these people at the time, and then I just got really frustrated because we weren't turning a corner, and I'm like, and you start to beat yourself up that I'm like, what am I doing wrong? How can these people not, am I not supporting them well enough? What's going on? Closed my office door, And I just had this idea. I was like, why don't I just post on Craigslist? Because like I love Craigslist. It's amazing. So we had over 4,000 downloads in a handful of days, and we had more drop orders than we knew what to do with, which was amazing because what a great problem to have, because that was what we were told initially was going to be our highest, point of contention was in terms of the drop order acquisition, which is again hilarious because we just went direct to drone or direct from smartphones and direct to drones, but yeah, it was phenomenally simple, and one little graphic ad totally worked, and yeah. But getting creative, again, it's all just about creativity and kind of being a hustler by whatever that means, and not just thinking to take things at face value, kind of asking why, and then seeing if there's kind of a more interesting solution around the corner.
Yeah.
So you spoke a little bit about kind of spoon feeding, because pretty much adoption rate in such an old industry can be slow.
Yeah.
And so how do you gauge how much innovation you should present when kind of pitching? Because I know that can be
It's a great question. So at first we, kind of went in as like, oh my God, this is the coolest thing ever. And then I was like, we should probably take this down 10 notches. And especially, again, with some of the capabilities we're able to do with the measurements, we created this solution on the platform where we were able to take away certain aspects. So it's like, instead of having the drop rater, in the drop down, it's like, let's just give them direct. If we know that they just want direct, all we're going to do is show them exactly the direct. But that took us as a company a little bit of that learning curve, because we were all just so excited at like what we built and being so proud of it. But again, it was in the speeding of the onboarding process that really kind of taught us that, wait, let's actually, let them crawl, let them walk, and then, teach them how to run.
Perfect.
So the feature to do the measurements, that's something that you developed from scratch, or you built into something that was already existing?
Yeah, so we actually had another partnership initially, and then we utilized Apple's AR capability, which came out in September of last year. But we obviously put our own spin on it. We have a phenomenal tech team, which we're really proud of. But we just kind of adopted it to our own, and now we have it in browser streaming as well, and yeah, it's been great.
So what are the companies?
We're friends and family.
Friends and family?
Yeah.
Nice.
Which is crazy because especially we've been 3 years friends and family.
It's all angel.
Yeah. Oh yeah. But Lewis is phenomenal at making people money. So he also does a lot of like real estate and whatnot as well. So he's always been good at creating returns for people, and this has been his baby for 3 years. So the fact that we even have gotten to this stage on friends and family is pretty remarkable. But everybody takes him for his word.
How did you guys find your tech talent, and also how did you screen who you wanted to join your team?
That's a great question. How do we find our tech talent? Just basically some word of mouth. We actually tried a couple of these consultancy companies, which for us didn't really work. Not because of the person or the individual, but just the high prices that were kind of attached to it, which we were just like, whoa. Because if you find the right mix of people in terms of personalities, you can kind of offer them equity, and then you have skin in the game. But with some of these consultancy companies, again, it started with design as well, so it wasn't just the tech components. Like, the numbers are so astronomical, which is amazing and makes sense for big corporations. But for a startup, we've never had runway as a company. It's always been month to month, but we've always gotten paid on time because people believe in Lewis. So it was a lot of dumb luck, certain networking events, and just meeting people that when you shook their hand and invited them into the office, you were like, you're going to get along with us. We're really weird. We have this wall in the office of we have Jonathan Taylor Thomas and a couple of 90s heartthrobs, just to make it super creepy for anybody that comes in, and we just have them on the little cork board, and there's no reference. There's nothing that explains why these are here other than to make everybody else feel slightly uncomfortable. So if you kind of get that culture, and if you comment on that board, probably means you're going to be hired.
Any question about culture building, team building? How do you?
JTT's at the center of it.
Yes, Jonathan Brandis too, but only when he was dressed up as the ladybugs. So when he was going as the girl, yeah. And then one of our we just have little notes, anytime basically, we're kind of like the older brother, and we all kind of razz each other. So if anybody finds a note to a loved one that maybe you happen to, for whatever reason, print out or whatever, it's and if we happen to find it, it's going on the wall. So it's kind of like a pseudo little wall of shame that's just kind of, it's sweet and it's something quirky, and that kind of makes sense to us.
Yeah, man, go for it.
Where do you kind of get your content or keywords for what people in the industry are currently kind of reading, looking at, so your potential clients, how you target them?
Yeah, so there's a great service that we're actually just starting to use, but it's called Audience. So you can actually analyze. I mean, you can obviously do traditional keyword searches and whatnot. Google does a ton of that, where you can find out your competitors' keywords and what they're using in their AdWords searches. But for us, it was like, we go look, for example, like I could reverse engineer where their marketing was, which I thought was brilliant. But I was more interested. I've never kept up with the Joneses, so that to me wasn't really interesting. I was like, I just wanted to look at it to be like, okay, does this make sense for us? But then using something like Audience is great because it's just hyper strong analytics, and it just tells you backgrounds on not only what's trending, but what's working in the space in terms of conversions, and it's a really cool platform that I can't wait to kind of play around with some more. I highly recommend it.
Kind of piggybacking off of his question, in terms of keywords, if you're creating an innovative idea that maybe nobody in the industry's heard about,
exactly.
So they're not searching it, then how do you play with the keywords?
It was very difficult in the beginning. So we had this one crowd that we were working with, and that was our biggest problem was, again, it was such an innovative product, especially in the beginning, and our competitors weren't using keywords. They were doing other things. So it was like, well, how do we adjust? What do we do? So again, it was kind of like, just throwing things against the wall. And it was, but also too, I love the fact that it was very psychological. So I just kind of, took a lot of the meetings and whatnot. That's again why I love to be on the ground floor. Just a lot of feedback from the meetings and whatnot, and then breaking down the psychology of who I viewed our end user as being, and then trying to figure out how to reverse engineer that to present that to them based upon something that they're searching for anyway. So it's I can't say that there's any given formula because it was really difficult. But again, that's where the press releases came in handy. At any time, and even still to this day, anytime we put out a release, the phones don't stop ringing. And they actually do call us on the phone. That's still a thing. So press releases worked really well with that, especially in the insurance space. And you can get packages too, so you can even get your rates down.
You actually have like an endpoint?
We do, well, it's technically a Google Voice, but they don't know that.
It's a Google, okay.
Yeah.
Sure.
Would you say that's your most effective channel in acquiring leads or?
It's worked so far. Yeah, it was good enough to get our name out there. Lewis was on the cover of Carrier Management magazine, which is a big deal in the insurance industry, which is hilarious. That again, even my parents were like, "Oh wow, this is a big deal." Like, you know what I mean? Like things that I had never heard of Carrier Management magazine before. I had no idea. But utilizing the media to any degree at which you can, and actually at InsurTech Connect, I walk right up to the people that are filming. I don't care who's there. I'm just like, hey, do you have, especially when Emilio was there and Lewis, I just walk right up to them and say, hey, like I have an interview for you guys. Do you have a minute? Doing stuff like that, which has always been in my blood, that's what I did launching Talk Nerdy Me Lover, super successful. You just have to have the balls to do it and just walk right up to them, and there you go. But anything you can do to leverage media at any time is very beneficial. I can't recommend it highly enough.
Okay, great. So any difference in terms of the KPIs that you're looking in? The marketing one is the same.
Mm-hmm.
But any special KPIs that you're looking in terms of the product itself? How do you,
I don't know.
or let me rephrase it. I don't know, I'm not sure that it's part of what you're doing, but how do you measure the success of the product?
How do we measure the success of the product? One, by listening to the customer, because that's, again, being so lean, we can do that. And the second we onboard anybody, it's like, we have like round-the-clock coverage, no joke, where it's like, God forbid, if anything were to go awry, we know, who to call, when, and we're constantly communicating with the customer. But, I mean, at the end of the day, you figure it out via revenue. So it's, do people keep using it? Because, again, we're not locking people into a contract. I was just joking about this. It's like dating, where it's just $15 per use case. That's it. That's all that we're interested in. So if you keep using us, that's successful from our eyes.
Okay. Fantastic. Okay, great. And this is the part that I really like. So we didn't talk about it. I learned not to talk about that unless you, no. Okay, fantastic. So basically, two couple of questions from Tim Ferriss and James Friel. So
that's so funny. Yeah.
He has great questions. So
yeah.
This will be like a completely surprise. So what is your favorite word?
What is my favorite word? Probably either, well, it's a twofer, splendiferous or perpendicular, just because I won a spelling bee championship for that in 4th grade.
Perpendicular.
Yep.
Orthogonal. Okay, awesome. It's a great word. What turns your creative juices?
Oh, music. I almost always, and especially because I don't really speak at anything very often, as a writer, I always have, and anytime I blog, there's always a song that I listen to. But I listen to it obsessively for like a week. And then one song over and over and over because I'm processing how I want to write the post. It's almost like words are like music notes to me, where I have like a symphony of how I want these beats to hit. And it's always the perfect song. Finding the song is so difficult for me that I'm just like, get in that mood. And then I have like this playlist that I listen to of anything that I've written to or like created to whatever degree that I'll go back to, and I'm immediately brought back to that post, that thing, that anything, just strictly from the song.
So can you add like a link to every post? This is the inspiration, that specific song?
Oh, that's what I do. Yeah, that's what I do with each of my posts. Yeah, just so that everybody knows. And then if I change the beats, if there happens to be some, so it actually switched over to Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds because I happened to be hanging out at the place Jim Morrison used to hang out. So I was like, I want to listen to this song. And so I had to make sure the reader actually had that, because it's all part of the experience, is the journey lyrically for me.
Okay, note. What book do you like to gift?
Oh, The Alchemist, easy.
Easy.
Super easy. I
Why
rarely ever have a copy of The Alchemist actually in my hand. So it's technically 2 books. Obviously The Alchemist, but then 2, the second one is What Everybody's Saying. It's by a guy with the last name Navarro. I just always think of James Navarro. But he was an FBI profiler, and it's a really easy book to read, but it gives people a baseline. It doesn't go into like NLP or anything super high tech, but it just gives you kind of a baseline of body language, which is fascinating. But The Alchemist for sure. And I always get mad when I give my copy away with all of my notes in the ledger, but I still give it away because every time I read it, I take something totally different that I didn't see the time before. Well, if you know about the book, it's all about Santiago, and he kind of goes on this journey, and he's a little bit frustrated with his current circumstances. And then he winds up in this tea shop. He meets this girl Fatima. He's like going on this grand adventure, but it's actually very similar to my own life, where you think you're going on this great adventure, but then you end up exactly in the place that you kind of started, that I never thought I was going to actually end up back in Los Angeles. I never thought I was coming back here. So my parents bought a house in Miami because they're like, she's not coming back. She just wanted to leave Los Angeles. So I relate to it in that level, but it's a beautiful book. Paulo Coelho's work is unbelievably great. I can recommend Veronica Decides to Die as well. The Witch of Bordello is amazing. Just highly recommended. But The Alchemist is the book that like totally changed my perspective even on reading, because I was like, oh, this is amazing.
I think that was his first book.
It was this hugely popular book. He did like I think maybe Pilgrimage came before it, but yeah, first true big one. But
who's your hero, fictional or real?
Corny, my father. Yeah, my father, hands down. And my mother too, obviously, my parents. But my father is, and it changes too. Like growing up, I always idolized my mother because I had my first company when I was 8 because my mom carried business cards, so I would carry business cards. And I emulated her to such a degree. And then I think as you get older, and especially as a woman, I just look to my father for just advice. Obviously, I love my mother as well, like I said, but there's just something so special about that bond that we just, every Christmas, we just sit on the couch. We don't even have to say anything. We'll have some wine, we have some good food, we don't really go anywhere, and it's like I don't even have to mention a single word, and it's like I feel like he knows everything, I know everything, and we just have that kind of bond, and I think family's so important, so I'm so lucky that I actually can stand mine.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Thank you for coming.
Thank you so much,
Thank you
guys.
for, your time with us.
No, thank you.